All right. Welcome back to the All American Hoops Podcast, episode 3. I'm Chris Driscoll, and this is officially my first episode bringing a guest on. And of course, it wouldn't be an All American Hooper event without the two guys that have been here since day one, my older brother, John Driscoll.
Hey, H, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And my younger brother, Matt Driscoll.
Hey, Chris, it's awesome to be on. As you can see, me and John are All American Hooper stand, so I'm very excited to be on.
I'd love to see that. Unfortunately, mine is in the wash currently. So, I wasn't able to, I didn't get the memo there. As I mentioned, great to have you guys on. Happy we were able to finally get it in there. I know we're all busy schedules and all that. But, the first 2 episodes were fun doing it alone, but obviously it's not the same. Obviously, it could only be so much fun talking for 25 minutes to yourself. So, it's going to be great to have an actual conversation with people about basketball. And this certainly isn't something new. It's something that we do every day. So, first of all, yes. So we'll just get started on this. So yesterday was Christmas Day. Hope everyone had a Merry Christmas. And obviously, I would say besides the NBA playoffs, I think that most NBA fans agree that Christmas Day is probably the best day to watch NBA games because it's usually either those that are big market teams or those that have superstars. So, those that don't really watch the NBA too much, they usually watch a little bit on Christmas Day. So, obviously, there was a slate of 5 games going on yesterday between the Knicks and the Bucks, the Nuggets and the Warriors, the Celtics and the Lakers, the Sixers and the Heat, and the Mavs and the Suns. We'll go through each of them. And first, we'll do the 12 o'clock game, which was the Knicks versus the Bucks. And John Cassidy and Matthew's roommate Dean were super happy, obviously. The Knicks came out on top. It was a huge game for them. Jalen Brunson continuing to prove me wrong as a all-star he is. Not an all-star yet, but he almost certainly will make it. Will make it this year if he keeps it up. But Matt, want to give your opinion on how the game went yesterday?
Yeah, I thought the Bucks were going to win this game because the Knicks have had a problem where they are kind of like in the tier 2 or tier 3 of teams in the NBA where they beat, good playoff teams, but they don't beat the great teams like the Celtics, the Bucks, the Nuggets, stuff like that. So a takeaway from that game is that the Knicks, they have to start consistently beating these teams. I think they have like the 13th hardest schedule remaining. So it's pretty tough. They are the 6th seed right now. They're 17-12. So they have some work to do if they want to stay out of the play-in. Another takeaway is that Emmanuel Quickley, obviously Brunson at 38, but Emmanuel Quickley had 20 points in 22 minutes. I think that he should start on the Knicks. I think he should get more minutes, and because he's a huge spark. I think he's like the 3rd most valuable player on that team. So, yeah, big win for the Knicks. They proved me wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think Matt hit a couple of great points. I also thought the Bucks were going to win this game, but Jalen Brunson over the last 5 games, he's averaging 28, 6, and 5. I think he's really starting to take that next step. I think the big discourse around him the past week was that he can't be a number 1 on a championship team. And that may be true. It's really tough for these, aside from Steph Curry, these kind of undersized guards to be that number 1. But he'd probably be one of the best number 2s in the league on a championship team. So, I mean, he's playing great. And, I mean, to focus more on the Bucks, I think you're kind of starting to see what the issue is with them. I mean, granted, they're 22-8, so it's not like, it's nothing to stress about. But their backcourt defense really something to kind of stress about. Maybe you'll see them address that at the deadline. But, teams are going to put up 115, 120 on them a night. They really have to – they have to hit that 120 mark in order to even have a shot at some of these games.
Yeah, absolutely. And to touch on the Jalen Brunson topic, you mentioned that Steph Curry, Isaiah Thomas, those are and if you want to consider Dwayne Wade a small guy, he was 6'4". Those are like really only the 3 guys to have ever been the number 1 option on championship teams. So to say that Jalen Brunson can't be that guy is no slight on him at all. He just isn't. Yeah, he's borderline top 20. Want to say that, and it's mainly because of his size. He works hard on defense, so there's it's nothing really there. I would say he's a negative on defense, but it's not really it's not really his fault. It's just because of his size. But add on to John's point about the Bucks. When the Bucks first traded for Dame, I'm pretty sure that I wrote my article about how the Bucks did have their concerns with backcourt defense, but it's a gamble you make when, first of all, Dame's one of the best offensive players in the league, and second of all, you have Giannis and Brook, who are probably like the best defensive backcourt duo in the league. So it's a gamble to take, and maybe it'll be worth it in the end of the day. But as of now, it's something that it's definitely something they're paying the price for it as of now. But we'll have to see how they address it at the deadline, or how much Dame improves on defense.
I also think that I looked up in the last 10 games, Chris Middleton's averaging 17, 5, and 5 on 50, 40, 90 splits. So if they can get more offense from him, because he's started off the year really slow, like if they can get solid offense from him and also solid defense, I think that could address some of the defensive concerns. But they definitely have to worry about perimeter defense, because their guards can't really guard anybody.
Yeah, and it's funny because the analytics say that there's really not much you can do in perimeter defense. Like when evaluating players, perimeter defense isn't really something to. Not that you can't be concerned about it, but it's something like obviously rim defense is more important than versatility. But you need to guard the perimeter, because otherwise, Jalen Brunson, Drew Holiday, and then if they get to the finals, Steph Curry, Jamal Murray, those guys are going to run circles around you. So you do need perimeter defense, despite what a lot of the rim defenders guys say. Cool. Yeah, so if that's all we have in the Knicks and the Bucks, then we can move on to the 2:00 game, which was the Nuggets versus the Warriors. Yeah, the Nuggets were able to close out in the end. The Warriors were putting up a pretty good fight in the first half, despite Steph Curry putting up a stinker. But the Nuggets were able to close it out, and that was also despite Nikola Jokic shooting very poorly from the field in the first half of the game. But he was able to close them off at the end, which is obviously what superstars do at the end of the game. Obviously, the three of us are huge Celtics fans, so it was really unfortunate we couldn't see Steph Curry put up a performance like that on, what was it, Tuesday night, I think, or Wednesday. Yeah, Tuesday night. But yeah, that's sports for sure. And it's even Steph Curry, he's a little inconsistent sometimes. But yeah, I just want to know your takeaways on the game, and what do you think about the Nuggets and the Warriors as a whole? John, you can start out.
Yeah, I think that Nikola Jokic, he had the quietest 26, 14, and however many assists, 8 assists he had. We do have to address that he had 18 free throws. He did go 18 of 18 from the free throw line. If we're going to slander Giannis and Embiid for that, we have to keep it, across same standard across the board. But I mean, this is what superstars do. They have, really tough shooting nights from the field, and they find different ways to impact the game outside of that. I think the Nuggets are the team to beat in the West. I know the Timberwolves are ahead of them in the standings right now, and they're the, impressive, shiny new thing. But, Denver's shown they can do it in the playoffs. I think they'll stay in that top 2, top 3 in the West, and they'll be the team to beat in the West come the playoff time. And then just to touch on the Warriors, I think they'll probably find a way to sneak in. They're the 10 seed right now, so I think they'll find a way to sneak in, especially if they do get Draymond back eventually. Who knows? But it's tough to count out Curry, and I'm sure Clay is going. Clay's kind of improved a little bit over the past week or so, but yeah, they're always a sneaky team. I don't think they're really a contender, but they could maybe cause some trouble for a top seed the playoff time.
Yeah, I agree with you about the Nuggets. I think they are the team to beat in the West. Sorry, Ryan McManus, but I do like the Timberwolves, but I do think the Nuggets are the best team in the West. A big takeaway from this game is that their entire starting five can score. They play super well together. I think everybody here, I wrote it down, everybody had at least 16 in the starting five. Gordon and MPJ both had double-doubles. I think they have a top 3. I think that's easily top 3 starting five in the league, maybe even the best starting five. And the Warriors, I think they're 15-16 now, or 15-15, whatever that game made them. But a lot of question marks with them, obviously, like when Draymond's returning. Is Clay gonna be consistent for the rest of the year, or is he kind of old and washed? But they do have the second easiest schedule remaining, so we'll see. I think they'll figure it out and be an annoying team to play in the playoffs, like John said.
Yeah, absolutely. To add on to your point about the Nuggets, both of you think they're the team to beat in the West. I'm not really sure. I picked them to. I think I picked them to lose in the conference finals to the Clippers. Obviously, they can be a threat. I'm a big fan of the Timberwolves. They're overall extremely well constructed. So yeah, but obviously you can't count out Jokic, who I think is the best player in the league, along with the great supporting cast and a great coach. So not really much else to say there. As far as it goes for the Warriors, it's hard to count out Steph Curry. I think he's a top 3 player in the league still. He obviously does have his stinkers every once in a while, but at the end of the day, superstars show up come playoff time, which is exactly what Steph has done in the past 2 years. He was a little disappointing in the Lakers series last year, but I definitely don't think that was his fault. But the Warriors will probably sneak in as like the 7th or the 8th seed. Maybe climb up to outside the in-season tournament. But regardless, you never want to play Steph Curry in any series, I should say, especially in the first round. But they've been improving, but they're definitely going to need more than Steph Curry to show up, which is what's happening the past couple weeks. But yeah, like I think that's all we have for that game. But the next one we can talk about our favorite game of the day. That was our Boston Celtics took down LeBron James and the Lakers. My takeaways basically it's obviously I do think this is the best starting 5 in the league. They've been playing fantastic all year long, and even though all year long I've been waiting to say I'm waiting for the honeymoon phase to end, and maybe that comes soon, but it's not really looking like it. Obviously they lost to the Warriors on Tuesday nights. They had those 2 losses to the Timberwolves and the Sixers back-to-back nights. But at the end of the day, they've had the according to the strength of schedule, this isn't me saying that. This is a stat saying that according to their strength of schedule, they've had the first or second hardest schedule in the league, and they have the easy schedule in the league coming up. So to have the best record in all that, that's huge, and that's also without Jason Tatum playing like this. So that's my takeaway in the Celtics. Matt, I don't know how much I covered, but Matt, if you want to add on to that or repeat what I said, then
like you said, the best starting 5 in the league. They're like a matchup nightmare for anybody. I think they're now 20-0 or 21-0, whatever that stat is, if they shoot at least 33% from 3. So if they're making their threes, it's really tough to beat them. But if they're not, they have a 7-3 guy that's in the 98th percentile for post-ups. Tatum had a tough night offensively last night. He shot 6 of 15, but he took 13 free throws. He found a way to get to the line. Porzingis obviously played super well. And their guard play, when they have great guard play between Drew and Derrick White, they're going to be really, really hard to beat. Drew Holiday has been awesome the past month. He started off kind of slow, kind of inefficient, but you can tell like he's always a pest on defense. He's everywhere. His playmaking's elite. And Derrick White, I just love Derrick White. He's one of my favorite players in the league. He's so solid to watch, so fun to watch. He's so solid every night. He's extremely valuable for this team and a potential all-star that we'll talk about later. But for the Lakers, the only gripe I have on the Celtics is the interior defense against Anthony Davis. He had 40 and 13. So that's like the only concern I had with the game yesterday. They held LeBron to only 16. He didn't shoot well. He shot 5 of 14, which is extremely rare of him to do. So, yeah, it's nice to see Celtics are just taking care of teams that are not as good as them. So that's a sign of a great team.
Yeah, I agree, Matt. You covered a lot of great stuff. I'm going to steal what you said about the Nuggets. Their starting 5 having at least 16 points. The Celtics starting 5 had at least 18. Thing that kind of jumps out to me the most on, just looking at the stat sheet is the backcourt play from Holiday and White. 18 assists to 4 turnovers. That's huge. We mentioned Tatum didn't really have the greatest shooting night, but still finished 25, 8, and 7. Again, that's what superstars do when they don't have their best stuff. Porzingis, again, I think that if you were to rank the Celtics and how great they've been this year with, Tatum, Brown. I think you have to slide Derrick White in that third slot just because of how consistent and how much of a sure thing he is. Porzingis probably takes that fourth slot only because of a couple injury problems. It's tough to. He's missed, I think, 7 or 8 games so far, which I think we all kind of assumed coming into the year. I'd rather them just baby him in a sense to make sure he's 100% come playoff time. But yeah, it's hard to find something to complain about with the Celtics thus far this year. They seem to have just been playing really well, and they look like they're just going to keep getting better and keep gelling and figure it out. So yeah, good time to be a Celtics fan for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I'd say my only 2 complaints, which the first one really isn't a complaint at all. It's actually complete opposite of that. Beginning of the year, I was concerned with Jaylen Brown because even though he was scoring pretty well and even playmaking pretty well, his impact wasn't really covering because like there was a point in the season where they were like 7 to 9 points better with him off the floor than on the floor. But however, he's been much better with that. Like he's brought that number down. Their own like for the entire season, his on-off splits is only like a -1, which I mentioned before. Like as much as I enjoy that stat, it's not always accurate. But even then, I'm going to talk about that stat a little more. So, Derrick White's on-off is like 11 point something. After that, there's a huge drop-off, which I think is a sign of an overall really well-balanced team. The fact that you got the fact that all the players are playing really well together without anyone being extremely impactful. It's reminding me of the 08 Celtics in a way. Obviously, Garnett was the best player on that team, but and you had the big 3. But after that, they had a really, really deep team. So it's enjoyable to watch for sure. But as far as it goes for the Lakers, it's weird. The entire season, or not the entire season, I should say. I've said every year since LeBron and AD have paired up, as long as the two of them are playing really well together, they're contenders. AD's been playing fantastic. He's playing the most. He's like I saw stats say he's played the second most minutes in the league this year. LeBron's been great, and as much as you can say the two of them are top 10 players, it's tough to win with only 2 top heavy guys. And you can blame part of that on injuries from Rui Hachimura and Jared Vanderbilt, but they do need their role players to step up. And obviously, end of the day, superstars need to carry the load. But they're definitely going to be active at the trade deadline, and I think LeBron has made that pretty clear in some of his post game conferences. Like I know it's kind of like a lazy argument to say like, oh, LeBron trades his entire team, but there is some truth to it for sure. That anytime he gets frustrated, you can tell that someone's getting moved.
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing about the Lakers. They're now 16 and 15. They're the 9 seed. They're like obviously any team with LeBron in the playoffs is very scary, but we're almost 40% through the season. Like I think they have to figure it out kind of soon. They got to figure out their bench problem because we're almost 40% through the season. So,
yep, absolutely. So, the next game after the Celtics Lakers was the Sixers versus the Heat. I'm imagining we won't really talk a ton about this game because there's really not much we can learn from both teams because obviously Jimmy Butler, the best player in the Heat, and Joel Embiid, the best player in the Sixers, they didn't play. So whenever you 2 best players don't play, there's really not much you can learn about either team. Only turnoff was obviously Tyrese Maxey played pretty poorly last night. You always want to see your second guy step up. But obviously Tyrese Maxey is very young, so you're not really expecting him to be that first guy yet. But however, when Joel Embiid is out, you need him to be a little better than when he played. So John, you want to talk a little bit about that game?
Yeah, I think this was I guess the most boring game of the slate, and really to no fault of these either teams, they just have both of their star players out. I think the 3 of us really do like Tyrese Maxey a lot, even as Celtic fans. We can appreciate the way he plays the game. Pretty plus on-ball defender. He's fun. He's athletic. He's really improved his shot since he came in the league. That being said, like you said, Chris, kind of a stinker yesterday. I think that does show the impact Joel Embiid has on a game. When you go to, if Joel Embiid's not playing, you really don't have to worry too much about that, interior offense or that post. You can kind of blitz the perimeter without like having to worry about him dishing down to Embiid because, after Maxey, the next best player is Tobias Harris, who I think is very solid, but, obviously nothing close to the impact Embiid has. So I think Maxey's a really good young player, but like you said, you do want to see your number 2 kind of step up, especially when the other number 1 on the Miami Heat was out too.
Yeah, I agree with what you say, John. And what you said, Chris, about the second best player stepping up, and that's exactly what Bam did yesterday. He had 26 and 15. I think it's safe to say he's a top 25 player in the league. He's really stepped up. But I want to talk about Jaime Jaquez Jr., the rookie on the Heat. He's currently 3rd in Rookie of the Year voting. I know it's either going to be Chet or Wemby, but I looked. The odds for Chet were minus 155. Victor were plus 120, but Jaquez is 3rd right now, plus 3,000. He had 31 and 10 yesterday, only 15 shots. I think he's extremely impressive on both sides of the ball. I think that's he's going to be a very annoying player to play in the playoffs for the Celtics for years to come.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that better myself. Of course, this is very typical that Eric Spoelstra making the most out of his role players after both the three of us got excited when Gabe Vincent and Max Strus left the Heat because that's 2 of their I don't want to say weird, but I guess I'll say weird players that no one expects to play great, and then they get this rookie who no one heard of before this season, but he's been awesome. He's been awesome all year long, and I don't know if the Heat are going to be good enough to make the conference finals again this year. But I said that last year too. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the Heat recover from this, or not recover, but how the Heat continue along, because obviously, even though they were without Embiid, it's always good to win against one of the top teams in the East. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what their ceiling is, because their floor, I think even though they're not a sure thing standings wise to make the playoffs without playing in the play-in tournament, I think I'm very confident that they'll at least squeak in there. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to say the least how the Miami Heat do. But yeah, as I mentioned, not really much to say. We can't really learn much from yesterday's game. But the last game, the late game, which I'm sure a lot of people didn't watch because it's pretty late at night. But was the Suns versus the Mavs, and it feels like up until last night, no one was really talking about how much of a disappointment the Suns have been this year. And they get the benefit of the doubt for sure, because their big 3 has played, I don't even know, but a very few amount of minutes with each other. But at the end of the day, as Matt mentioned earlier, about 40% of the games into the season, they're gonna need to figure it out. And being healthy is a skill. So the 3 of them Durant, Booker, and Beal need to get healthy, and they need to climb up in the standings, because they're out of the play-in tournament now. That can't happen. They need to, especially when you go all in for KD, you went all in for Beal, and Beal's contract isn't really friendly either. So this is the year to go all in. But Matt, I'm curious to hear what you had to say about that.
For this game, it was awesome. I was playing Luka in fantasy this week, so I checked fantasy this morning. He scored 119 points against me, but that's besides the point. Luka, he really just always plays well against the Suns. He seems like he takes his game to another level. Obviously, he had 50 and 15 last night. The Suns, like you said, they can't stay healthy, and they really can't guard anybody. I think you can argue Kevin Durant's the best defender, and even though he's a very good defender, he should not be the best defender on a team. They're 14 and 15 now. They should figure it out soon. I don't know what they can do, what assets they have to trade, but they need bench depth. Grayson Allen starts, but he's a good role player. But the big three, if they're not playing together, I don't see the Suns making it even possibly out of the play-in. So we'll see if they figure it out. The Mavs are way better than I thought they would be, even without Kyrie. He's a question mark. I don't think there's even a timeline for him to return, but with him off the court, they're still playing well. Obviously, Luka is a top 5 player in the league. Derrick Jones Jr. had a really good game last night, and their rookie Derek Lively had 20 and 10. He averages almost 2 blocks a game, so he's been really solid for them. So they're the 5th seed now. I thought they would be like around same record as they were last year, but they've really impressed me so far this year.
Yeah, I think you made a good point on the Suns, Matt. I kind of relate it to when KD and Kyrie were in Brooklyn. They kind of had, when they first started off, I know the first year KD was hurt, but the second year I thought they were kind of all set, and they kind of just needed to get to the playoffs with KD, Kyrie, and then they had good depth. They had good role players that played their role. They had Jared Allen, they had Karis LeVert, and then they kind of shipped that depth off for that third superstar, which I think in a perfect world, in a 2K world, could work. But when you have an issue like this where you have KD, Booker, and then you trade for that third superstar, you obviously sacrifice a lot of the good role players that can help you in a playoff game or just in a regular season game. And say, in this case, Bradley Beal, you have injury problems, then you're down to your 2 superstars without that depth, without those good role players that you sacrificed in order to add that third superstar. So, yeah, I think it's tough for the Suns right now. I think there's a lot of superstar talent, so it's hard to kind of rule them out of anything. But, I mean, they got to figure it out, and they got to figure it out quick because the season's it's moving along. It's not, the first week or two anymore. They have to figure it out. And just quickly to touch on the Mavericks, I think Luka's playing, some of the best basketball in the league right now. He puts up, NBA 2K stats with, 50 points, 15 assists. It's truly unbelievable. But, yeah, we'll see. I think the Mavericks are in a good spot. I think once they get Kyrie back, you can maybe see them move up the list in the Western Conference. But
didn't really talk about the Mavs a ton, but the Mavs are in an interesting spot when you have Luka, like a top 5 player in the league. I don't want to. You're gonna be, if you're not a contender, you're gonna be close to a contender. As of now, I don't see the Mavs as contenders. Maybe Luka can carry them to the conference finals again, but regardless, I don't think they're better than the Nuggets. I don't think they're better than the Wolves, even the Clippers when they were at their best. But yeah, it should be interesting to see, especially when Kyrie comes back, because when he's healthy, he's fantastic. He didn't play well in the playoffs in 2022, but he's still certainly not someone to scoff at in a big game, especially when he's not the main focus.
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing about the both teams. The Mavs have the 5th hardest schedule remaining, and so we'll see if they're actually true contenders like people are saying or not. And the Suns have the 3rd hardest schedule remaining, so sitting at 14 and 15 with Beal out for an extended period of time. I don't think. Yeah, I'm not huge on the Suns anymore.
Yeah, it's tough to count out KD and Booker, who are both top 12 players in the league, but especially when both of them are great in the playoffs. But it's tough, yeah, especially when come elimination games when Booker is one of the worst in the league at that. But yeah, it should be interesting to say the least how they recover from this. But yeah, that's it for Christmas Day games. But the next thing we wanted to talk about was the All-Star game. And All-Star voting opened up about a week ago. And probably besides the 5 games, I think the hottest topic of discussion yesterday was when JJ Redick tweeted out Derrick White's an All-Star. And I don't think there's anyone in the media that's a bigger fan of Derrick White than JJ Redick, because obviously when Derrick White didn't make the top 100 list from ESPN at the beginning of the year, which still baffles all of us, the fact that people throw out the names of Colin Sexton and how awful that player is. The thing that my biggest takeaway from that was everyone watched the Celtics last year. They saw that Derrick White was the third or fourth best player on the team, and then they watched Grant Williams, who had DNP after DNP. They rated Grant Williams ahead of him. So I don't know what their thought process was, but other than just to get the three of us angry, and apparently JJ Redick as well. But yeah, so JJ Redick tweeted out Derrick White is an all-star and had a lot of people agreeing with him, also a lot of people disagreeing with him. So I'll let you guys give your opinion on that first. But yeah, I have my opinion, but I just wanted to hear what you guys had to say first.
So, like I said, I think I'm the third biggest Derrick White fan behind JJ Redick at 1 and our dad at 2. I don't think he's going to make the All-Star game, unfortunately. I think there's just too many good guards in the East, but I would like to make a case for him. Bill Simmons tweets today that he leads the NBA in net rating at plus 14.5. He's shooting almost 50, 40, 90 splits. He's on pace for 100 blocks, 100 steals, and 200 made threes, which has never been done before. The Celtics are significantly better with him when he plays. They're 22-4 when he plays. He has a career high in points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, three-point percentage, and field goal percentages. But like I said before, I just think there are too many good guards in the East. I think Jalen Brunson, Halliburton, Donovan Mitchell, Dame Lillard, Trae Young, and Maxey all make it over him, which understandably I think they all deserve to, but I think it's great that he's getting the recognition he finally deserves.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Matt, and you make good points that, there are only 6 of those backcourt spots. And with the NBA All-Star game, unfortunately, it's not who's, more impactful or who's more important to their team. It's a lot of it has to do with counting stats, and rightfully so. I mean, I think that, you tune into the All-Star game, you want to watch those exciting players, even though I think Derrick White's very exciting to watch. But, I guess a player, if you wanted to nitpick a player on that bubble of that 6 would be like Trae Young, who puts up great counting stats. I mean, 28 and 11, it's hard to argue that, but it doesn't really impact winning. I think Derrick White impacts winning. He's one of the top perimeter defenders in the league, shoots at a very high clip, very intelligent basketball player. We love Derrick White. Just unfortunately, I think that being that number 3 or number 4 on a championship level team, you're not going to get the comparable stats to a number 1 or a number 2 on maybe a lesser team. So it's unfortunate, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely unfortunate. Really the only 2 players that I can think of that made the All-Star game in Derrick White's spot where they're not putting up great counting stats, but they're impacting their team are Draymond Green and Rudy Gobert. And those are 2 big guys who are probably, in my opinion, 2 top 5 defenders at their position, which we talked about how important perimeter defense is, but at the end of the day, rim defense is a little more important because the guys are shooting at the rim at a higher percentage. But yeah, it'll be tough. Matt mentioned names, but Trae Young, Tyrese Maxey, Tyrese Halliburton, Dame Lillard, Donovan Mitchell, and Jalen Brunson. He's going to have to make it over one of those guys. So maybe he gets in as an injury replacement. Maybe he sneaks in ahead of one of those guys because at the end of the day, coaches decide the bench players. So, and he's definitely a player that all coaches appreciate. With all that, Popovich loves him, and definitely a player that coaches scheme around as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting to say the least, but obviously voting doesn't end for another couple weeks. And then after that, after the starters are established, that's when the coaches decide the bench players after that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to say the least, but obviously you are rooting for it, but I'd give it probably like a 35% chance maybe now, but yeah, the chances definitely aren't 0, but yeah, I definitely think, especially after yesterday where you saw how great he played on national TV, those are the games that often decide whether a player gets an award or not.
And I think there's a difference between, we're talking about will he make the All-Star team, not really like should he, because I think he's deserving of an All-Star spot.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at it objectively. But like we discussed, these other players have higher usages. They have those stats that put him above that, fans vote for, but like you said, coaches do decide. So there's an outside chance. I think he's deserving of it, but I don't think that he will, just based on the numbers.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so the last thing we wanted to talk about was the MVP award. I was about to say this is the time where we start talking about the MVP award, but however, this is something that the media talks about all year long, and definitely something that is interesting to say the least. As much as people criticize the MVP award, it's definitely a very cool accomplishment at the end of the day. But we're each going to give our picks. So my pick is Luka Doncic. I think that he's putting up, or not I think, I know he's putting up video game stats right now. He's one of the best scorers and one of the best playmakers in the league. I think he's definitely a top 3 offensive player in the league. If he's not 3, he's definitely 2. I think that Jokic is 1, and then second is probably either him or Steph. The Mavs are much better than everyone expected to be. Kyrie's been out for the past couple of games, so the fact that Luka's still carrying this load while playing fantastic, he's got to be at least in the discussion. But he's my number 1 for sure.
I guess I'll go with my pick so far. I think Joel Embiid will probably, if he continues the way it's been going, he'll repeat the MVP award. He is the Vegas leader right now. I think the discourse around him is kind of rightfully so a little negative sometimes when discussing the MVP award. I think last year kind of left a bad taste in everyone's mouth when, maybe this is a biased take, but there's a little bit of whining, and people called it like a pity MVP, so to speak. And I think that there's some truth to that. He discussed it a lot, but it kind of took away from the numbers he put up last year, which I think were MVP deserving. And I think with him losing in the second round last year, they were kind of even more magnified that it was undeserving. And I thought that coming into this season, he really had to blow away the competition to be in talks again. And frankly, that's exactly what he's doing. He's leading the league in scoring. He's doing a great job leading the Sixers to a top 3 seed in the East again. But, that being said, I think the discourse around him is still a little negative sometimes with, some of the foul baiting and the way he gets to the line a lot. I know that's a negative kind of topic around him, but it's hard to ignore the numbers he puts up. It's hard to ignore the impact he has on their team. You can see that from yesterday. They struggled against the Heat without Jimmy Butler, and Tyrese Maxey struggled, who's had a great year. He definitely has one of the biggest impacts on his team around the league. So that's my pick so far this year, but we'll see how the rest of the season plays out.
Yeah, I was actually going to pick Joel Embiid at first when you asked when you sent the email about we were going to talk about the MVP pick. He's leading in scoring for a 3rd straight year, which is very impressive. He also has a career high in assists by 1.8 assists a game. But I just think that his performance where he just vomited all over himself in Game 7 is really going to leave a sour taste. And it was a shame. I was really upset about that. But it's really going to
How did Jason Tatum play in that game, by the way? Did he play all right?
I think he did all right, actually.
He was fine. Yeah.
You should look that up. We'll check that later.
Yeah. I think that's going to leave a sour taste in the voters' mouth. I think it's voter fatigue will also play a little factor. So my pick is, it's pretty boring, but it's Jokic. I think he's the best player in the league. I think he's on the 2nd best team in the league, just behind the Celtics. Best team in the West. He's averaging 26.4, 12.3 boards, and 9.2 assists. He's just awesome to watch. And we're talking about impact of winning. He's insanely impactful winning. Even though people say he's like a negative on defense. I don't think he's a negative. I just think his offensive game is so good that that's what people are comparing his defense to. But he caused a lot of turnovers. He steals the ball. He blocks a decent amount of shots. He leads the league in kickballs. So it shows he's at least putting an effort in on defense. But I just think he's the best player in the league, and it's his award to lose until he's not the best player anymore.
That kickball stat is awesome.
Yeah,
yeah. Lead the league in kickballs.
Yeah, but as we mentioned, as of right now, Joel Embiid is the favorite. But at the end of the day, not everyone makes as many lists as I do, but I do think that most people either had Embiid at 5 or just outside the top 5 because of how awful he played in game 6 and 7. And I don't think that's going to change until he capitalizes in the playoffs. He's averaging in the mid 30s right now, and that's insane. He's pretty much getting the James Harden treatment where everyone's enjoying what they're seeing, but he needs to capitalize. So yeah, that'll be interesting to say the least. But yeah, that's it for the MVP talk, and that's also what we had today for the pod. John and Matt, thank you for coming on. This certainly won't be a one-time thing, as we've talked about off the air. Super excited to have you guys on. But yeah, that's all we have. That's all we have for today. As I mentioned, I'm Chris Driscoll. You can follow me on my social media platforms. It's the same thing for all of them. It's all American Hooper on Twitter, on Instagram, and on TikTok. You can also check out my column on primetimesportstalk.com. And yeah, that's all we have for tonight. I'm hoping to have another episode up in the next week or so. But thanks for tuning in, and I hope everyone has a great night.
Thanks for having us, Chris.
Thanks, AH.
Thank you.